right, good morning, everybody.
Good
It's
morning.
Sunday.
It is.
Today is part 2 of Paul appears before Felix. Go ahead and say it. I know you're dying to say something.
Please remember the prayer request in the prayer box. We do have some new prayer requests in there I know for sure of, and there may be something that I don't know of because I don't monitor the prayer box. It's a confidential thing.
Yeah.
But please remember the prayer box continuously.
Okay. Okay, we're in Acts 24, starting at verse 17. After several years away, I returned to Jerusalem with money to aid my people and to offer sacrifices to God. My accusers saw me in the temple as I was completing a purification ceremony. There was no crowd around me and no rioting, but some Jews from the province of Asia were there, and they ought to be here to bring charges if they have anything against me. Ask these men what crime the Jewish High Council found me guilty of, except for the one time I shouted out, I am on trial before you today because I believe in the resurrection of the dead. At that point, Felix, who was quite familiar with the way, adjourned the hearing and said, wait until Lysias, the garrison commander, arrives. Then I will decide the case. He ordered an officer to keep Paul in custody, but to give him freedom and allow his friends to visit him and take care of his needs. A few days later, Felix came back with his wife, Drusilla, who was Jewish. Sending for Paul, they listened as he told them about faith in Christ Jesus. As he reasoned with them about righteousness and self-control and of the coming day of judgment, Felix became frightened. Go away for now, he replied. When it is more convenient, I'll call for you again. He also hoped that Paul would bribe him, so he sent for him quite often to talk with him. After 2 years went by in this way, Felix was succeeded by Porcius Festus, and because Felix wanted to gain favor with the Jewish people, he left Paul in prison. And now the commentary. Felix had been governor for 6 years and would have known about the Christians, or the way, a topic of conversation among Roman leaders. The Christians' peaceful lifestyles had already proven to the Romans that Christians don't go around starting riots. Paul's talk with Felix became so personal that Felix grew frightened. Felix, like Herod Antipas, Mark chapter 6, verse 17 and 18, had taken another man's wife. Paul's words were interesting until they focused on righteousness and self-control and the coming day of judgment. Many people will be glad to discuss the good news with you as long as it doesn't touch their lives too personally. When it does, some will resist or run. But this is what the good news is all about: God's power to change lives. The good news is not effective until it moves from principles and doctrine into a life-changing dynamic. When someone resists or runs from your witness, you have undoubtedly succeeded in making the good news personal. The Jews were in the majority, and the Roman political leaders wanted to defer to them to keep the peace. Paul seemed to incite problems among the Jews everywhere he went. By keeping him in prison, Felix left office on good terms with the Jews. Felix lost his job as governor and was called back to Rome. Porcius Festus took over as governor in late 59 or early 60. He was more than just Felix, who had kept Paul in prison for 2 years in the hope that perhaps Paul would bribe him, and that by detaining Paul, the Jews would be kept happy. When Festus came into office, he immediately ordered Paul's trial to resume. Though God had promised that Paul would preach the gospel in Rome, Acts chapter 23, verse 11, the great apostle had to endure more than 2 years of Felix's refusal to decide his fate. In addition to this custody, Paul was subjected to other long stretches of time during which he could do little but trust God and wait for him to act. What do you do when it comes to the issue of waiting on God? Do you become anxious, angry, discouraged? Few things test our patience and faith like being forced to wait, which perhaps explains why our sovereign God often puts us in situations where we have no other choice. That is a true fact right there.
Yeah, it is.
The hardest thing for us, anybody, is to wait.
Yeah.
When we want something, we want it now.
Mm-hmm.
When we need an answer, we need an answer right now.
Yep. I think that every breathing, living soul has that problem.
Yep. But patience teaches us to rely on God even more.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it makes us, as we rely on Him and as the answer comes clearer to us, or the situation changes the way we either had hoped or not hoped, either way, when the situation changes and we see a clearer answer, we know who made that answer. And that's the whole point.
She's going to do the table again.
Yeah. We know who made that answer, and that's the whole point. And we
Right.
give God glory for the answer, whether it goes our way or not, because we see His hand working, and it just proves His existence and proves His glory.
Sometimes we wish that He would answer more legibly.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't hear, or even if we do hear, we want to ignore that still small voice that He gives us because we're still unsure.
Yeah.
You know, He gives us like, okay, this is the way I want you to go, but it's so still and small. We think, but I'm waiting for a bigger sign.
Yeah.
You know, this little sign on a 5x7 is not as big as the billboard. I want
Yeah.
the billboard.
Yeah,
you know?
we all want that.
And it's hard. It's hard to just sit and wait, and it's hard sometimes to know. Sometimes it's clear as day. You know exactly where He's leading you.
Yeah.
But other times it's not so clear.
Yeah.
And with Paul, he knew he was going to go preach there. But if he's like any other breathing creature, I'm sure he didn't expect to preach there from prison.
Yeah.
You know, or get taken there because of prison.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was like, I know I got to go to Rome, so let's hurry up and get on with it already.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Whereas God's saying you are preaching from right here.
Yeah, and he got to preach to the very high people, and he made people nervous, and that's a very true thing too. Whereas I say this all the time. I had a friend, say, no, I don't want to be a Christian because then I don't have to give up drinking.
Right.
Okay, well, how do you argue with that? Okay, well, that's true. Well, you don't have to do it, but you probably will.
Right.
It's not a requirement to be a Christian that you have to give up drinking, but it's
the closer you get to be with God, the less you want things that ain't from God.
Yeah, it's just a thing, and that frightens people to give up whatever it is they're doing. I'm just using that as an example.
Right. And that's the thing, like you just said, it's the things that frighten people.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you know you've made it personal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I think that's all we have for today. Hope everybody has a glorious day, and we'll talk to you later.